Hey, Dan the bodybuilder from Thailand. Winstrol doesn't build muscle. We're gonna go over this stupid thing that some people say, and we're going to debunk it, okay? But first, check this out. No steroids, only neuroids. Test Beast 677. Yeah, fucking sweet. Yeah. Code Dan, 25% off. Winstrol does build muscle, guys. So some people are very confused. They're very, very confused about steroids and bodybuilding. So the first thing is that dihydrotestosterone and its like analog synthetic hormones, which are masteron and proviron, they do not build muscle, okay, because they are deactivated the moment that they enter muscle tissue within minutes by an enzyme that resides there called 3 beta hydroxy steroid dehydrogenase. Okay, so that's why those three chemicals, dihydrotestosterone, masteron, and proviron, don't build muscle. Okay, but pretty much any other steroid does build muscle. Pretty much any other steroid does build muscle. Let me repeat that, because that's what steroids do. They activate the androgen receptor, which then makes your DNA express itself in a more anabolic or building up, adding, or tissue building way, or prevention of tissue wasting. Okay, that's what steroids do. That's their function in the body. The only reason why a select few steroids do not do that is because they are deactivated in muscle tissue, okay, by that 3 beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase enzyme. And that's that enzyme can only bind to DHT, masteron, and proviron, because they are DHT with slight alterations to them. The other hormones that you can take for bodybuilding, they promote buildup of tissue, more tissue, more muscle. Okay, so that goes for Winstrol, that goes for Anavar, that goes for Primobolan, that goes for Equipoise, that goes for Deca, that goes for testosterone. Some people are confused because they have a half truth. Okay, and one of the half truths is that high testosterone dosage is necessary to build monsters. And yeah, that is true to some extent. But before aromatase inhibitors were invented in the 1980s, bodybuilders didn't use testosterone, okay? And there were still bodybuilders, okay? There were still big bodybuilders. And they didn't use testosterone. They used Deca or Primobolan as their injectable, and then most of them used Dianabol, Winstrol, Anavar, Trenbolone. Some of them used Halotestin. Those were what they used in addition to the Deca that they were injecting, but they didn't use testosterone. So that would be the golden era bodybuilders. And testosterone didn't really start getting used much really at all until the 1990s. That was when testosterone started being used by bodybuilders, and that's when bodybuilders got a lot bigger and a lot freakier. That's because of a number of different factors. That's because of also the introduction of growth hormone and insulin on abusive levels, and the invention of recombinant DNA technology in the mid-80s, which made E. coli bacteria be able to manufacture human growth hormone with because they modify the DNA of the E. coli using some viruses to modify its DNA so that it produces human growth hormone. So that made human growth hormone become a lot more well available. I don't want to get too far off subject here though, but so testosterone, for example, that's in the 1990s. That's when testosterone started being used regularly by bodybuilders. Before that, it was not a hormone that was real popular or used by a lot of bodybuilders in cycles. And if they would use it, it would be at a very low dosage. The reason for this is because they had no way really to control their estrogen. Nolvadex was invented in the late 70s, but it didn't really catch on in the bodybuilding community for quite some time. And aromatase inhibitors like we know them today weren't available until the late 80s, early 90s. So that's that. That's why testosterone wasn't used. It's a relatively new compound in bodybuilding, really, because bodybuilding has existed since the 1940s, 1950s, and it's only been in the last 30 years that testosterone usage is a regular thing, and that's because of the invention of aromatase inhibitors to make it so that you can control the estrogen conversion of testosterone. So now we're able to use this very potent muscle building hormone, and it does build muscle, and there is a huge correlation with the dosage of testosterone and the size of the bodybuilder. The average dosage of testosterone used in a bodybuilder's cycle, there is a huge correlation with that and the muscular size of the man. So it's not a magic trick when people are big. It's not a magic trick when people are bigger. And it's not a magic trick when people are bigger than bigger. Okay? They're upping the dosage. Upping the dosage. This is how I imitate a syringe, right? Because I got like on the little thing right here, and then I go that's how I imitate with my hand, pressing the plunger on a syringe down, okay? So, guys, humans are a natural size. You know, you see humans, and they all, you know, there are guys who work out, there are athletes, and there are guys who don't, but all humans, they generally resemble the same structure or the same size. Like, it looks like things fit on their body in a certain way. It looks like muscles fit on their bones in a certain way. When you take steroids or testosterone, that changes that, and you start seeing like, oh, there's a bodybuilder, there's a guy, you know, with big bulky muscles that don't fit on his bones. And then when you see guys bigger than that, that's because they're taking a higher dosage. So the more testosterone you take, the bigger you get. And this keeps on going all the way up from, you know, a beginner dosage of 250 milligrams per week, all the way up to, you know, an insane dosage that, you know, pro bodybuilders are using, such as 5,000 milligrams of testosterone a week, which, you know, 2,500 milligrams to 5,000 milligrams testosterone per week is it's like an average dosage for somebody who's, you know, a competitive pro bodybuilder. It's like an average dosage. They do go higher. Some guys are taking, you know, 7,500, 10,000 milligrams of testosterone per week. That's how much Dallas McCarver was taking. He was taking over 10,000 milligrams of testosterone per week. And remember how big he was? So it's not a magic trick, guys. You know, the reasons why people are as big as they are, remember, it's not magic. And, you know, people, it's a bit embarrassing. It's a bit embarrassing because obviously you see those physiques and you know that's not normal. And when you see people who are very, very huge and freaky, they look like aliens, not of this world, and you think that's not normal. But then if you go and talk to them and they tell you that they're doing all the same things with drugs that the guys who do still look normal look like, or the guys that just, you know, look like they take a bit of steroids, if they're saying that that's what they do, that's a lie. That's a lie, okay? It's a lie. It's not a magic trick why they're so big. It's not a magic trick, okay? You increase the dosage of the steroids you take and you become bigger, okay? That's the way it is. So Winstrol does build muscle. I had somebody come at me, talking to me about telling me I didn't know what I was talking about Winstrol lately, and because I said that Winstrol built a lot of my muscle on my physique. So on the internet, Winstrol is something with a lot of side effects, and it's something that doesn't build muscle well. But in real life, among gym rats who actually go to the gym and use steroids, people who aren't just, who the fuck knows who these people are on the internet who are writing this shit on forums? Who the fuck knows what they are, what they've done? Losers. Probably have never even used it. Just read about it. Theory boys. So in the real life, in gyms, many guys use Winstrol on a regular basis, and it contributes to a lot of the muscle growth that you see in your average gym. Winstrol is a component of that. It's cheap, it's effective, it makes you look good, it improves your strength within a week of taking it, and it also builds muscle. It also helps your testosterone work better. The more oral steroids you take, the more free testosterone you have. And so when you take oral steroids such as Winstrol, it makes the testosterone that you're injecting, more of it becomes free and unbound in your blood, able to act on the androgen receptor instead of being bound up by sex hormone binding globulin and other proteins that float around in the blood, binding up sex steroids and preventing them from having their actions. Oral steroids make the injectable steroids you use work better. And Winstrol is one of the very best at doing this. Winstrol has a very profound effect on reducing sex hormone binding globulin and increasing the amount of free testosterone that you have in your blood. So the synergy of testosterone and Winstrol works very well together. And you'll notice that your body composition is better when you're on testosterone and Winstrol together. And then when you remove the Winstrol, if you don't change anything, your body composition will be not as good anymore. You'll notice that you become softer, and you actually won't be processing your food as well anymore. So Winstrol has a absolute nutrient partitioning effect, and it helps the food that you eat go to where you want it to go to the muscle cells and away from the fat cells. And if you keep your diet the same, and you've been taking testosterone and Winstrol, and then you take out the Winstrol, and you keep your diet and training the same as it was when the Winstrol was in, you will notice a change in your body composition, and it won't just be the cosmetic effects of removing the drug, the oral steroid. It won't just be that changing. It will actually be your body composition, your percentage of fat to muscle. If you don't change the diet or the training and you remove the Winstrol, your body composition will change because of removing that very potent nutrient partitioning agent and anabolic, Winstrol. So yeah, lots of guys in your average gym are using Winstrol to build muscle. It builds muscle very well, has a great synergy with testosterone. But a common cycle back before testosterone was used, back in the 70s, in the 60s, in the 80s, a common cycle was DECA with Winstrol. That was a good pre-contest stack and something that was used quite often. And also just something that was used as a growing stack, not just as a pre-contest stack, but also as a growing stack. You don't need to have your muscles be so full of storage, of fuel storage. More testosterone is going to give you more fuel storage, and you know what, I'm going to leave that part out. The part that I just now said about fuel storage, X that off, okay? X that off. But I just wanted to let you know, guys, that when it comes to anabolic steroids, you don't want to take a science-only perspective, okay? And this goes for regular bodybuilding and too, because a lot of the scientific studies are very flawed, and the scientists, they never really have the bodies. They talk about it and talk very scientifically, like they know how to get it, but look at them and all their followers. They don't have it. So you got to make a mix of science and anecdotal, experience-based evidence, and you got to mix those two schools of thought, and that's how you're going to get the best. That's how you're going to get the best results with your bodybuilding. So, for the guys that are like all about like, oh, it's got to be science-based or whatever, like this is the only true way is if it's science-based, and like, bro, science is bullshit. Man, those guys are so like, they've been brainwashed by these science guys to that's the way it is, and that like they should believe in science as their religion. It's just like guys who are like atheists, and they're like, like bent on being atheists against guys who are just like, they believe in a god or something, right? It's like religious to these guys, to be taking the science approach. And I'm sorry, but the science approach is not the end all be all, guys. Like especially with gear, like people say like, oh, I only want to follow science-based evidence with gear. Well, look at the studies on growth hormone, for example. They don't ever combine growth hormone with steroids and do the studies like that, because that's how bodybuilders use them. And growth hormone has a different effect in your DNA when you combine it with steroids. So that's something that all bodybuilders who have used growth hormone and steroids know that it has a synergistic effect and know that it builds muscle. But people who just read about it or just do studies, they are on the other side of that, and they say, no, it doesn't. But those people are fools. They are fools, because they haven't used it and they don't know. So that's not the way it is in the real world. You know, that may be the way it is when you read about it, but in the real world, it's not that way. And then the other thing is that in scientific studies, for about 50 years, they said that anabolic steroids didn't build muscles. And that was what the scientific studies said, and that's what all the doctors said. They said it does not promote building muscles. And we all know that that's also wrong. We all know that that's completely 100% false. So I encourage you to not make science your religion, and to understand that experience-based bodybuilding and application of drugs, supplements, diet, etc. absolutely has value and absolutely has its place. So make sure and be logical and incorporate that as well, and try to get a good balance of science-based evidence to support your experience-based theories. All right, so Winstrol builds muscle, guys. I'm sorry to all you guys who are religious about that it doesn't. You're wrong. Winstrol builds muscle. Dan the bodybuilder from Thailand.